UPSC's tricky question paper. UPSC's CAPF exam sheet sparks a political row. Opposition slams government over the question paper. Questions on post-poll violence in West Bengal. Questions if farmer agitation is political. 200 words essay on the oxygen crisis in Delhi. Opposition alleges UPSC behaving like a BJP organ. Were the UPSC questions political? Our top focus on To The Point this evening.
Good evening, viewers. You're watching To The Point, and I'm Preeti Choudhary. So on the 8th of August, the CAPF exams were held under the UPSC board. And certain questions were asked, which now most opposition parties says were highly explosive and political in nature. What exactly is the contest all about? Take a look.
Is farmer protest politically motivated? Write arguments for and against. Write a 200-word opinion piece on the poll election violence in West Bengal. Write a 200-word essay on the oxygen crisis in Delhi. These were questions asked by the Union Public Service Commission, the UPSC, in the CAPF, Central Armed Police Forces Recruitment Examination 2021. The questions since have sparked a massive controversy and a political row. The opposition alleges politics at play, where the government is looking to recruit people with a specific political ideology. The TMC has now demanded the cancellation of the exam and will be going to court over the questions asked on West Bengal poll violence.
ये तो एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का क्वेश्चन है, यूपीएससी का क्वेश्चन कैसे हो सकते हैं? और सबसे डेंजरस, poll violence in West Bengal. We condemn it. It is condemnable. Parliament is not running properly. Otherwise, it could have been rocked the parliament.
मुझे नई बात नहीं लगती. सभी राजनीतिक दल जो सत्तारूढ़ हैं, वो इतिहास को भी अपने तरीके से लिखने और परिभाषित करने के आदी हो चुके हैं.
The exam was conducted on August 8th, and these questions were asked in the General Studies essay and comprehension paper. The CAPF recruitment exam is held to employ assistant commandants in BSF, CRPF, ITBP, SSB and CISF. While the government maintains questions have been purely factual in nature, the opposition has countered that there is an attempt to politicize these exams. However, it is important to note this is not the first time that allegations of suggested doctoring the question paper over ideology have been made. It's known to have happened before, even during the reign of the UPA and the BJP as opposition. Bureau Report, India Today.
All right, so in midst of all of this, the opposition says that the UPSC is behaving like a tool of the government, like a government organ, and the government is politicizing it all. Now, the government says that these are factual questions, and the others who have actually watched how UPSC has posed their question papers over many decades say that this is all very usual. Every government does this. It's happened in the time of the UPA as well. Let's cut across right now to our guests. I have Dr. Ajoy Kumar, Congress spokesperson. I have Niti Jain, Bharatiya Janata Party spokesperson. I have Vikram Singh, former DGP, Uttar Pradesh. Ms. Jain, you know, if I am a UPSC aspirant and I sit in an examination and I have 3 questions which have been highly contentious, especially politically in the last 1 or 2 months, my views on the farm protest, whether it's political or not, the post-poll violence in West Bengal and the oxygen crisis in Delhi, I'd be a little jittery because these are highly explosive political views. What if my person who's correcting my paper doesn't quite agree with my views?
You know, Preeti, I think this is simply a matter of a guilty conscience from the opposition and raising an issue where none exists. And to prove that point, let me just read to you a few questions from a few years earlier, including right for and against note ban. Effective, is it an effective tool against black money? Farm waiver is populistic and myopic. Violence on a university campus during student elections. Pre-poll alliances are better than post-poll alliances. This happened before the Maharashtra, so otherwise maybe Congress would have come up and said you are targeting our coalition in Maharashtra. So these are the issues that the UPSC has been, these are the current affairs. These are the matters that matter the country today. And these are the questions that the UPSC has been framing. UPSC is an autonomous body. They have been raising these questions. They have been doing a fairly good job on whatever they are doing it for. To raise questions, I think UPSC was the only institution left that the opposition had not targeted as a proxy of the government.
Ms. Jain,
everything from the judiciary to the army to everything else.
Ms. Jain, if we go by the virtue of what you've just stated, do tell me if it would be fair to ask, dead bodies on the banks of the river Ganga in Uttar Pradesh. Could views have been asked on that, or that would have been not a good idea?
Sure, I am not a spokesperson for UPSC, but those are the questions that the UPSC needs to be asked. If you want to ask, go to the court. Whoever is feeling aggrieved with whatever is happening, they need to go to the court.
All right, okay.
If you think something is not right, if you are an aggrieved party.
Well, TMC is going to the court. The TMC in this regard is going to the court.
They are just raising this issue because it matters them this time. And that is the only reason they're raising this issue. Otherwise, the UPSC has been asking tough questions. If they're asking note ban.
So, madam, as I bring in,
while we are still in government.
Yeah, ma'am, as I bring in Dr. Ojoy Kumar, but the fact is, you know, at one end to say that these are general knowledge questions, on the other to ask somebody's opinion whether the farm crisis right now, the farmers' protest is political, is highly explosive. Because if I feel it's political, or like if I feel it's not political, what if my marker feels it is political? Then my grain is going completely against the person who's going to put his marks on my paper. But Dr. Ajoy Kumar, the fact is, with what Niti Jain says, that these are everyday, these are facts. You know, it is a fact that there was violence during West Bengal polls. Now, is it the guilty conscience of the TMC, is what she's saying, which has reacted? It is a fact that there was an oxygen crisis in Delhi. So, why are we politicizing it, is what the BJP is saying.
Look, sorry, I got a bad sore throat, but see, the UPSC normally asks the aspirants on their analytical skills on issues. Now, violence in Bengal is a very bad question. Violence in elections would have been the right question for a civil servant to answer. You know, I want to inform Ms. Jain that when I give the UPSC, there were also issues which were related to political issues, but they were in terms of analysis. So the question again is, what are the challenges of oxygen supply in the country during a pandemic? That's an analytical question. Now, when you say Delhi, like you correctly said, Preeti, on the bodies and the bodies in the Ganges, the problem with the Modi government is, and I'm not saying that, look, if it happened during the UPA time and it was political questions, those are wrong too. So we should be very clear that, look, and I would like to hear my esteemed colleague, that if those are the questions, I would like to be educated on it. But the fact is that when you are asking civil servants political questions, you are putting them at risk. You are looking that. So political violence is a good question. Shortage of drugs.
For the UPSC exams, let me come in.
Ms. Jain, let him complete and I'll come to you. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Dr. Kumar.
It's a pattern of destruction of all institutions. Now, did we make those mistakes earlier in some of those questions? If we did, it's our bad and I accept it. But the fact is that you always come into a discussion hoping that India gets better. Now, this government has found the ability to destroy each and everything. I mean, when they ask questions and they answer in the parliament, and Preeti is off syllabus, but I'll tell you, Ministry of Defense says we don't buy Pegasus software. Ministry of Home doesn't say. So these kind of lies, asking UPSC to say TMC violence, oxygen in Delhi. The question should have been, what is the impact of political violence during elections and what are the resolutions? That's a UPSC question.
Okay.
A UPSC question being that how does India make sure that its health infrastructure in terms of oxygen supply is ensured? Oxygen security. Yeah, those are questions.
Okay.
But
You know,
UPSC
Dr. Kumar, the fact is you started by saying that we've made the same mistakes, because I had a full list under the UPA and the UPSC questions which were posed during your time in power, or at least when your current party was in power. So, you know, there's no point going into those questions right now. I want to bring in, though, I know, Ms. Jain, you want to come in, but let's also bring in Vikram Singh. He's the former DGP, Uttar Pradesh. He knows the workings of the UPSC. And Mr. Singh, you know, many questions can be raised that is there, you know, does this smack of politics? But can you take us through and break it down? How are these question papers actually formed? Because for, you know, all the research that we did today, we seem to come to a conclusion that it is a committee which is highly secretive. Nobody quite knows how these question papers are made.
Very true, Preeti. I would not, of course, like to break the protocol, but my association with various commissions is, and tell me the gist of which is, please avoid religion and politics, both in the written papers and also in the personality test. Please avoid these two, religion and politics. But if there are matters that pertain and impinge upon the politics, I would feel that as Dr. Ajay Kumarji rightly mentioned, the critical thinking and analytical ability, that if there was violence in West Bengal unprecedented, then what was the role of the Election Commission, the central government and the state government, the state police and the paramilitary forces? I think it is the right question. I have in my hand, I'll give you a sneak preview of a model question that I have, and this also has all the questions that you have mentioned, Preeti ji, which have been asked in very many examinations, and also those pertaining to COVID deaths and the protocol pertaining to the cremation and appropriate cremation of COVID-related deaths. Also, what is remdesivir and the shortage, the Disaster Management Act, and all the other aspects. But the bottom line, Preeti ji, is that religion and politics have to be avoided at all costs. We are not here to assess the religion and the political inclination of the candidate, only the critical ability to have the weigh the pros and cons and analytical ability of the candidate. Is he suitable for public service or not? And I would say that, as Dr. Ajay ji has said, these questions could have been appropriately worded.
Dr.
and
Singh, before I go to Ms. Jain, Mr. Singh, before I go to Ms. Jain, those three questions which have been found to be bothersome, or there is a fair amount of anger against them, the one which talks about the oxygen crisis in Delhi, the one which says to give arguments both for and against if the farm protest was politically motivated, and poll violence in West Bengal. Would you count them some three questions that should not have found their place in this paper?
No, they should have found their place, but I would recast a question like this. What do you have to say about poll violence and the most horrible three cases of poll violence in the country, without naming any state? Which are the three states or the three areas where oxygen-related are alleged to have taken place, and why were they preventable? As also, there are allegations of shoddy cremations. Shed light on that and what could have been done better. Without naming the state, we are not here to discuss states, politics or religion at all.
Niti Jain, would you want to comment on that?
Yes. First of all, everything Mr. Ajoy said, I think it validates the point that I'm trying to make, that this is more about guilty conscience when you say that you don't name the party that is erring. So I think that is one. The second point being, everybody can have an opinion on how things should be done.
I will let you complete, but I want to just come in. I will definitely, Mad. I just want to make a quick point here. The erring party, okay, if like say if it is TMC, it is for the courts to decide whether TMC was responsible for the post-poll violence or the poll violence. Should it find a place in the papers? It's not a fact. It's not a fact that TMC was responsible.
And against. And like I said, if TMC is aggrieved, instead of making a political point out of it, go to court. The UPSC has been setting papers. They have been using the current affairs to analyze the people who are going to serve in these very circumstances. And they need to be aware of what is happening on the ground. So just politicizing everything that the institutions, the autonomous bodies in this country are doing is politicizing the entire issue. And that is what the opposition is currently doing. That is my simple point. If you have an issue, please go to the court. Or if you think that the judiciary is also working for the center, like the Congress has already said in the past, those are the things that need to stop. To question every autonomous body on everything needs to stop just because it doesn't suit your own political agenda. That is my simple point. How the questions should be framed, I think there is a committee, like you said. UPSC has been doing this job. We have a good set of bureaucrats. They need to work in these circumstances and they need to know these circumstances.
Ms. Jain, what you are actually accusing the Congress of and the opposition of, you stand accused because that's what they are saying. You are politicizing the UPSC.
Preeti,
Yes, Doctor.
We are in no place to politicize it because UPSC is an autonomous body, does not work in any instructions from the government.
Okay, Ms. Jain. Now let me get in Dr. Kumar. Yes, Dr. Kumar, go ahead.
Preeti, the intention of all sensible people, like Ms. Jain, my senior Vikramji correctly said, if our intention is the betterment of our institutions, then these questions don't reflect that. Take an example, farmers' issue. What are the reasons why the farmers are agitating? What is the country, why is there a difference of earning between the farmers in Punjab and Bihar? Those are analytical questions of governance. And why I keep insisting, I've worn both the hats, the political hat and the civil servant hat. It is very dangerous for the civil servants to go, and we are doing it much more than...
This was a CAPF exam. This was not for the IAS and the papers.
That's even worse, madam. They're lawmakers. BSF, CRPF, whichever. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Let Mr. Kumar finish. Let Dr. Kumar finish. I'll come to you, Ms. Jain. Yes, Dr. Kumar.
The question again is, like all of us have been saying, Vikramji correctly said, there's a question, the political violence, is it an issue? Yes. When you say TMC, then I can ask the same question, like, is the BJP political violence, would that be acceptable? Would that UPSC be still asking current
TMC
affairs?
Wasn't named, Dr. Kumar. What was named was West Bengal.
Violence.
Yeah.
No. I'm saying, Preeti, when you say bodies in the Ganges, would UPSC be very non-political? Bodies in the Ganges, the question again is, cremations across the country, across all states, happen, whether BJP or Congress, people covered up the numbers. So the death figures across India and the reality of the COVID numbers, your opinion thereof gives you an analytical perspective. Okay. My question again is, my request to Ms. Jain and her party and everybody else is, we are, as a political animal, we keep attacking each other, that's fine. But those institutions of civil servants should be absolutely independent, because they'll be second guessing.
Okay.
They will, again, the boys will say,
but she's saying they're independent. Niti Jain,
questioning them, you questioning them is second guessing them. Like I said, these questions have been asked in the past. These questions, and for example, if you tell the media today, just cover all the post-poll violence, don't name West Bengal. It is a reality. It happened in West Bengal. Why should the question not be asked? And why politicize it? I agree with your point to some extent when you say that the politics should be kept away from bureaucracy. I agree with you on that point. But the point here is that this is a fact which happened, and it was covered largely in the media. The farmers' protest, it was a for and against. It is an open-ended question. You write what you want to write. If you think it is not politically
what if my marker believes it's politicized?
You talk about UP.
But what if my marker believes it's politicized and I, as a UPSC aspirant, doesn't believe it's politicized? Yes, sir, quickly make your point.
You are talking about for and against, so you're writing both point of views.
Ms. Jain, I'll just complete. What Vikram Singh said, no civil service exams should have any politics or religion.
Okay.
And those are the lodestar which you must follow. You must never ask interview questions or written exam which has got anything. You ask analytical policies.
Okay.
But no religion, no politics.
Okay.
Was the barometer. Now, if somebody did a mistake earlier, doesn't justify you to continue doing it.
Okay. All right. I need to close the bulletin, but I'll give 10 seconds to Mr. Singh, before I close this debate. Mr. Singh, for somebody who's been a part of the UPSC, how do you reckon going ahead? How do you rectify something? Because it seems ingrained then. Because it's happening from the time of the UPA.
Preeti ji, nobody is infallible, but the UPSC is an excellent and an outstanding exemplary organization. Of course, this appears to be a fault line that needs to be rectified. We are briefed before every interview. Please
Right.
take pains not to mention religion and politics in thought, word, and deed during the course of personality test and during the course of written tests.
All right.
And this is a law which needs to be reinforced, Preeti ji.
I appreciate you all for joining us. Thank you. I'm terribly out of time there. Up next is Rahul Kanwal.